My name is Elena Harrington. I'm 29 years old. And 3 months ago, I learned that my father's love had conditions I was never supposed to question. I was 8 months pregnant when he finally showed me what happened when I refused to live the life he designed for me. But the truth is, this didn't begin at my baby shower. It began years earlier, quietly, the moment I chose happiness over his approval. From the outside, my family looked flawless. My father, Richard Harrington, was a powerful corporate attorney, the kind of man whose name carried weight in boardrooms. He lived for reputation. Success wasn't just something he achieved, it was something he worshipped. Our house in Westchester was always immaculate. Our family photos looked like magazine spreads. Even our arguments were supposed to be silent. I was raised to be part of that image. The smart daughter, the well-dressed daughter, the daughter who would marry correctly. For most of my life, I believed that love meant obedience. That belief shattered 4 years ago. That was the year I met two men and unknowingly set fire to my relationship with my father. The first was Evan Brooks. He was everything my father admired. 33, son of one of my father's firm partners, custom suits, luxury car, generational wealth. I met Evan at one of my father's charity galas, the kind with crystal glasses and silent auctions. Evan asked me out 2 days later, and when I told my father, I watched his eyes light up in a way they never had for my happiness alone. This, he told me after our third date, is the kind of man you build a future with. What he meant was, this is the kind of man who reflects well on me. The second man came into my life 6 weeks later, completely by accident. His name was Lucas Morales. He was a high school history teacher I met at a bookstore in Greenwich Village. We reached for the same book at the same time. He apologized, laughed, then asked me what I was reading. We ended up talking for 45 minutes between the shelves. Lucas drove an old Civic. He volunteered at a literacy program on weekends. He spoke about his students like they mattered. He didn't impress me. He moved me. For a short time, I dated both men casually. Evan took me to Michelin-starred restaurants and talked about partnerships and investments. Lucas took me to indie film screenings and talked about ideas, empathy, and purpose. Evan was polished. Lucas was real. And when it came time to choose, I didn't hesitate. I chose Lucas. The night I told my father, we were having dinner at his house in Scarsdale. White tablecloth, expensive wine, everything staged to look perfect. I'm seeing someone seriously, I said. He smiled until I said Lucas's name. You're choosing a teacher, he said slowly, like the words tasted wrong. Over Evan Brooks? I'm choosing the man who makes me happy. His face hardened. Lucas Morales has no connections, no future, no ability to provide the life you deserve. I have my own career, I said, my hands shaking. I don't need a man to validate my worth. My mother tried to intervene, but my father snapped. She's throwing away an opportunity most women would kill for. I stood up. I'm dating Lucas. If you can't respect that, then you don't get access to my life. His face turned red. If you continue this relationship, he said, don't expect my support. I don't need your support, I replied. I need your respect. I left that night believing he would cool down. I was wrong. Over the next 3 years, my father barely acknowledged me. He spoke to my mother, not to me. Ignored Lucas at holidays. Praised Evan constantly, as if he were a ghost meant to haunt my choices. Lucas never complained. He'll come around, he said, eventually. I wanted to believe that. But love built on patience can still be tested by silence. I just didn't know how violently that test would come. By the second year of my father's silence, I stopped pretending it didn't hurt. It wasn't loud rejection, it was worse, quiet erasure. He never yelled at me again, never confronted me directly. Instead, he simply removed me from the version of his life that mattered. When he called the house, he asked for my mother. If I answered, there was a pause, just long enough for me to register the discomfort, before he said, "Is your mother there?" Family gatherings became exercises in emotional invisibility. He spoke animatedly to my younger brother, Nathan, and his wife. Asked about their careers, their plans, their future children. When Lucas came with me to Thanksgiving the first year, my father didn't acknowledge him at all. Not a handshake, not eye contact, not a word. Lucas noticed. Of course he did. But he never reacted. He carved the turkey beside my brother, helped my mother clear dishes, and thanked my father politely when we left, even though my father didn't respond. In the car that night, I apologized through tears. I'm so sorry, I whispered. You don't deserve this. Lucas squeezed my hand. This isn't about me. It's about control, and he's losing it. I wanted to believe that made it easier. It didn't. What made it harder was how deliberately my father kept Evan alive in conversation. Did you hear Evan made junior partner? Evan just bought a penthouse in Tribeca. Evan's seeing someone new, but she's not nearly as accomplished as you were. Each comment was a blade disguised as small talk. The message was always the same: you chose wrong. Lucas handled it with more grace than I thought was humanly possible. But grace doesn't mean invincibility. Sometimes late at night, when we lay in bed, I felt the tension in his silence. The unspoken question of whether love could outlast constant dismissal, whether patience would eventually turn into resentment. Then, last spring, Lucas proposed. It wasn't extravagant. It was us. A picnic in Central Park, on the exact patch of grass where we'd had our first real date. He packed sandwiches he made himself. No photographer, no audience, just a small ring he'd saved 8 months to afford. I don't have everything, he said, his voice shaking, but I have you, and I want to build a life with you. I said yes before he finished the sentence. When I told my parents, my mother cried happy tears. My father's response came hours later. I hope you understand what you're settling for. I'm not settling, I replied. I'm choosing. We got married in May at a botanical garden. Small, intimate, honest. My father attended. He didn't smile in a single photo. He didn't give a speech. He left immediately after dinner, shaking Lucas's hand stiffly like it was an obligation rather than a blessing. I told myself it didn't matter. I was wrong again. 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant. Lucas and I cried together on the bathroom floor when the test turned positive. We laughed, we panicked. We talked for hours about names and cribs and how nothing would ever be the same again. We were happy. When I told my mother, she screamed with joy. When I told my father, there was a pause on the line. Well, he said finally, I hope Lucas can afford to support a child. We'll be fine, I replied. We've planned for this. And when you stop working? We'll adapt. He scoffed but said nothing more. For the first time in years, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, the baby would soften him. My mother threw herself into preparation. Nursery ideas, ultrasound appointments, baby clothes she insisted on buying herself. She talked about becoming a grandmother like it was a second chance at joy. My father stayed distant. He never asked how I was feeling, never asked about appointments, never touched my belly. But when my best friend Clara and my sister-in-law organized a baby shower for early November, my mother insisted he come. He should be there, she said gently. He needs to see what he's missing. I hesitated. He hasn't been there for me in years. He's struggling, she insisted, but he loves you. Against my instincts, I agreed. The day of the shower was beautiful. Soft green and cream decorations, tables filled with gifts, laughter echoing through the room. Lucas helped set up chairs, joking with my brother. Friends from work, college, neighbors, all the people who had shown up for me when my father hadn't. Then my parents arrived. My father wore a full suit, tie included, like he was attending a board meeting instead of celebrating his unborn grandchild. He stood near the entrance, stiff and watchful, like a man entering enemy territory. I walked over, heart pounding. Hi, Dad, thanks for coming. Your mother insisted, he replied flatly. His eyes scanned the room and landed on Lucas. The look on his face sent a chill down my spine. This, he said quietly, is your life now? Yes, I answered, and I'm happy. He didn't respond, just walked away. I should have known then. But hope makes us reckless. And I still didn't know what my father had already set in motion. For the first hour, I almost let myself believe everything would be okay. The room was warm with laughter. Soft music played in the background. Someone was always refilling glasses or adjusting decorations. My mother fluttered between tables, beaming like this celebration somehow erased the tension of the last 4 years. We played baby games. People guessed the due date. Lucas laughed louder than usual, like he was trying to fill any silence before it could turn sharp. I caught my father watching from the edge of the room. He didn't participate, didn't smile, didn't sit. He stood near the refreshment table, hands clasped behind his back, observing everything like a critic at a performance he hadn't approved. I tried not to look at him. Then, 90 minutes in, I felt something shift. The air tightened, conversations dulled. I noticed people glancing toward the back corner of the room. My stomach dropped before my brain could catch up. Standing beside my father was Evan Brooks. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. I hadn't spoken to Evan in 4 years. I hadn't invited him. I hadn't even mentioned him to anyone involved in the planning. But there he was, perfect suit, uncomfortable posture, eyes darting around like he already knew he didn't belong. I felt dizzy. Lucas noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" he whispered. Before I could answer, my father turned and saw me looking, and he smiled. Not warmly, deliberately. I walked toward them, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Evan," I said carefully, "I didn't expect to see you here." He shifted, clearly uneasy. "Your father invited me. He said it would be nice to congratulate you." My father placed a hand on Evan's shoulder. "I thought it would be good for you to see what he's accomplished," he said. "Evan just made senior partner, youngest in firm history." "That's great," I replied, my voice tight. "Congratulations." "Thank you," Evan said quickly. "And congratulations to you too." Lucas was already moving toward us. My father wasn't finished. "He's also engaged now," my father continued. "Congressman Fletcher's daughter. Quite the wedding planned. The plaza." Something inside me cracked. "I'm happy for him," I said. "Truly." Lucas arrived beside me, placing an arm around my waist. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Fine," I said, though my body was trembling. My father was just sharing Evan's achievements. Lucas extended his hand to Evan. "Congratulations, man." Evan shook it gratefully, like a lifeline. My father's face darkened. "You see, Elena," he said loudly, "this is what success looks like." "Dad," I whispered, "please." "He owns property. He drives a Porsche. He has influence. That's a future." People were staring now. Lucas spoke calmly. "Mr. Harrington, I think success looks different to different people." "Don't lecture me," my father snapped. "I know exactly what it looks like, and it's not a public school teacher renting an apartment in Queens." My friend Clara rushed over. "Is everything okay?" "It's fine," I lied. "Dad, let's step outside." "No," he said sharply. "I'm done pretending." My mother appeared, her face pale. "Richard, stop." "She threw away everything," he continued. "She's having a baby with a man who can barely afford—" "We're doing just fine," Lucas interrupted, tension creeping into his voice. "We planned for this." "Just fine isn't good enough." "It is to me," I said, raising my voice. "I have a husband who loves me." "You're settling," my father sneered. "No," I said, "I'm choosing love." Evan took a step back. "I should go." "No," my father said. "Stay. I want her to see what she gave up." I felt sick. "Look at him," my father said to me. "Really look, and tell me you made the right choice." "I did," I said firmly. "Lucas is kind. He shows up. He respects me. He's a loser. He's my husband." That's when my father snapped. "You ungrateful little brat," he shouted. "After everything I've done for you." "Dad, stop," I yelled. "You're making a scene at my baby shower." "I don't care," he roared. "You threw away Evan for this nobody. You're ruining your life." And then he lunged. I didn't have time to react. His hand clamped around my arm, fingers digging in so hard I cried out in pain. He tried to pull me away from Lucas. "Get your hands off me," I screamed. "Someone help!" Lucas moved instantly, shoving my father's hand away. "Don't touch her." My father shoved Lucas back. Lucas shoved back. My brother rushed in, grabbing my father around the waist. "Dad, stop!" My mother was sobbing. "Richard, please." Clara pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police!" That word cut through the chaos like ice. My father froze. He looked around. 60 shocked faces. Silence. Horror. Reality hit him all at once. "Get out," I said quietly, my voice deadly calm. My arm throbbed. "Get out now." My mother tried to help him. "No," I said. "He leaves alone." My father stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Then he turned and walked out. The room stayed silent long after the door closed. Clara clapped her hands. "Okay," she said shakily. "We're celebrating a baby." The joy never fully returned. Later at home, Lucas photographed the bruises forming on my arm. "Do you want to call the police?" he asked softly. "I don't know," I said. "He's my father." "He assaulted you," Lucas replied, "while you're pregnant." I didn't answer. I just stared at the bruises, 5 distinct fingerprints blooming purple and blue, and realized something fundamental had changed. The bruises darkened overnight. By morning, they were unmistakable, 5 finger-shaped marks, deep purple with edges already turning blue. I stared at them in the bathroom mirror, one hand on my belly, the other hovering over my arm like touching them might make the reality worse. Lucas stood behind me, silent, furious in a way I had never seen before. "This isn't nothing," he said finally. "This isn't a misunderstanding." "I know," I whispered. But knowing didn't make deciding any easier. By noon, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Texts from my father came first. Too many, too fast. "I lost control. I didn't mean to hurt you. You pushed me." I was trying to help. Each message swung wildly between apology and justification, and every time my phone lit up, my chest tightened. Then came my mother's calls. She cried through every voicemail. He didn't mean it. He's sick over what he did. He loves you so much. I didn't call her back. Not yet. My brother Nathan called that evening. Listen, he said carefully, I love Dad, but what he did was unacceptable. You're 8 months pregnant. He could have hurt you, or the baby. I know. So what are you going to do? I didn't have an answer. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to fix things immediately. I wasn't smoothing over the damage or rewriting events to make them survivable. I was sitting in the discomfort, and it was terrifying. A week later, my father showed up at our apartment, unannounced. Lucas answered the door before I could stop him. His body filled the doorway like a wall. She doesn't want to see you, he said flatly. I need to apologize, my father insisted, properly. I stepped into view, one hand instinctively resting on my belly. You can apologize from there. He looked awful. Dark circles under his eyes, hair uncombed, his suit, always pristine, wrinkled and ill-fitting, like he'd slept in it. For the first time, he didn't look powerful. He looked desperate. Elena, he said, his voice breaking, I don't know what came over me. You grabbed me hard enough to leave bruises, I replied, in front of 60 people. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. I was just so frustrated. So you hurt me, I finished. That's your explanation? I only wanted what was best for you. No, I said, my voice steady. You wanted what looked best to you. He reached out instinctively, then stopped himself. I can't lose you, he said. You're my daughter. You should have thought about that before you attacked me for not living the life you wanted. Silence stretched between us. What can I do? He asked finally. Tell me how to fix this. I looked at him, the man who had towered over my childhood, who had once defined safety for me. I need space, I said. Time, and you need to understand something very clearly. He nodded, desperate. Lucas is my husband. This baby is our family. We are not going anywhere. If you can't accept that and treat us with respect, you don't get access to our lives. I can do that, he said quickly. I will. Words are easy, I replied. Change isn't. He nodded again, defeated, and left. For 6 weeks, he respected the boundary. No surprise visits, no demands. Instead, once a week, he sent an email. Not long, not dramatic. Just updates, apologies, questions about my health, about the baby. He told me he'd started therapy. I'm learning things about myself that are uncomfortable, one email read, but necessary. My mother confirmed it later over coffee. He's genuinely shaken, she said quietly. He knows he could have hurt the baby. It's eating him alive. Good, I said, and I meant it. In mid-December, my father asked if we would meet him for dinner. Just the 3 of us. Lucas hesitated. Are you sure that's safe? We'll meet in public, I said. If he starts anything, we leave. The restaurant was quiet, neutral territory. My father looked nervous. I had never seen him nervous before. I don't deserve this, he began, but thank you for coming. We ordered, and then, without interruption, he talked. For 25 minutes. He spoke about his own childhood, his father, the pressure, the criticism, the belief that success was survival. I tied my worth to achievement, he admitted, and I projected that onto you. It wasn't about me rejecting you, I said. It was about choosing my own life. I see that now. He turned to Lucas. I owe you an apology, he said, meeting his eyes directly. I've treated you like you weren't worthy of my daughter. I was wrong. Lucas nodded slowly. I appreciate you saying that. Please, my father said quietly, call me Richard. He looked at me again, tears forming. I assaulted you while you were pregnant. If you never forgive me, I'll understand. But I'm asking for a chance to be better. I didn't promise forgiveness. I promised honesty. That's all I can give right now. And for the first time, that was enough. The night I went into labor, the sky was the color of wet cement. It had been snowing earlier, the kind that melts on contact, leaving everything slick and reflective. Lucas drove with both hands locked on the steering wheel, jaw tight, eyes fixed forward. I breathed through the contractions, counting, grounding myself in the rhythm we'd practiced. We didn't tell my father at first. Not because we were trying to punish him, but because trust doesn't regenerate overnight, even after therapy, even after apologies. Still, my mother found out, and she told him. When we arrived at the hospital, my phone buzzed once. I'm in the waiting room, the message read, if that's okay. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Lucas watched my face carefully. You don't have to decide right now. I know, I said. Hours passed. Pain blurred into time. Time blurred into effort. And then, after one final, impossible push, our daughter arrived, screaming and alive and perfect. We named her Mila. When they placed her on my chest, the world narrowed to her warmth, her weight, the way her tiny fingers curled instinctively against my skin. Everything else, anger, fear, memory, fell quiet. A few hours later, when the room was calm and Mila slept between us, I told the nurse it was okay to let my parents in. My mother came first. She cried quietly, hands shaking, kissing my forehead, whispering how proud she was. Then my father stepped inside. He looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but emotionally. Like he understood the space he was entering was no longer his by right. He didn't rush forward. He waited. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward the bassinet. I nodded. He lifted Mila carefully, like she was made of glass. Tears streamed down his face as he looked at her tiny features. "She's perfect," he whispered. "Absolutely perfect." "She is," I said, "and she's ours." He looked up at me, eyes red. "Thank you," he said softly, "for letting me be here." "You're earning it," I replied, and I meant it. The weeks after Mila's birth were slow and fragile. My father visited once a week, always asked first, never stayed too long, never offered advice unless asked. When he spoke, it was careful, measured. When he held Mila, his hands trembled, not with entitlement, but awe. Lucas watched him closely at first, always present, always alert. And my father noticed. He didn't take offense. He accepted it. One afternoon, while Lucas was changing Mila and I rested on the couch, my father stood beside him quietly. "You're a good father," he said. Lucas paused, looked at him, then nodded. "Thank you." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was respect. Over time, something unexpected happened. They began to talk. About basketball games, about lesson plans, about law cases Lucas found fascinating despite himself, about how terrifying it is to love someone so small and vulnerable. Once, while painting Mila's nursery a soft yellow, my father laughed at something Lucas said. A real laugh. The sound startled all three of us. But healing is not linear. Some days, when my father raised his voice, just slightly, in excitement or emphasis, my body reacted before my mind could. My shoulders tensed. My breath shortened. The memory of his fingers digging into my arm flashed uninvited. Lucas noticed every time. And my father noticed us noticing. He never argued. He lowered his voice. He gave space. That mattered more than any apology. One afternoon, months later, my mother asked me something I hadn't considered fully. "Do you forgive him?" she asked quietly. I thought about it for a long time. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I'm learning how." Forgiveness, I realized, isn't an event. It's a process built from consistency, accountability, and time. And even then, it doesn't erase memory. It lives alongside it. I still remember the bruises. I still remember the fear. But I also see my father now, holding Mila, listening instead of directing, asking instead of commanding. And I'm choosing day by day to let those two truths exist together. If your parent hurt you for refusing to live the life they wanted for you, would you let them back in? I don't have a perfect answer. I only have this one. Boundaries don't mean hate. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And love, real love, never requires you to disappear to survive.